it's Eliana here. I'm your host of your Vibe Tribe podcast. Welcome back to another episode, and I'm so excited to have you with me today. Before we dive into the heart of today's conversation, I wanted to take a moment and express my gratitude to each and every one of you who tunes in and supports my podcast. Your energy and support truly makes your Vibe Tribe community special. Now, if you've been enjoying the content, the advice, and the incredible vibes, there is a simple way you can support the show. How? By sharing the love. If you love what you hear on your Vibe Tribe podcast, it would mean the world if you could take a moment to share it with your friends, family, and on your social media. It's super easy. Just hit that share button on your favorite podcast platform or take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram stories. Don't forget to tag us at Your Vibe Tribe Podcast so we can personally thank and connect with you. And for those of you who haven't already, make sure to hit that follow or subscribe button on your podcast app. This way you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. Our Vibe Tribe podcast is growing and it's all thanks to your support. So let's keep this momentum going. Share, follow, and let's make Your Vibe Tribe podcast the #1 women's mindset podcast in the world. Let's get started. Today is part 3 of all the questions you should be asking yourself. There is going to be part 4 because there are just so many layers and aspects that make up who you are. There are infinite amount of questions you should be asking yourself, but I've found that these are some of the most important ones in the areas of your life that really will bring more clarity and will help you live a more intentional life. So there are 3 questions I want you to ask yourself to help bring more clarity around your goals and aspirations. The first question is, what do I want to achieve in the short term and the long term? And I've touched on this in a previous episode very slightly, but this is such an important question. You will not have any direction if you do not know what you want that to look like in the short term and the long term. And if what you want in the short term really aligns with what you want in the long term. If those two things aren't coinciding, it's going to be very challenging for you to start living one life and start going in one direction. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I was going this way, but I really want to be over here in 5 years, instead of maybe readjusting, reevaluating and being like, okay, well, I want maybe my life in 2 years, I want it to be like this, but it doesn't match how I want to be like this in 5 years. Maybe let's redirect and figure out how I can make this trajectory a little bit this way. And this question, I don't think there's any easy answer to this. I think it's very hard to give an exact answer for this is how exactly I want my life to look at in 2 years. And like, if this doesn't happen in 2 years, I'm going to unravel. No, these questions are not to have this timeline in your head, but it's almost to have a guide map, right? And a roadmap that you can kind of follow to get you closer to your goals and your aspirations. Just to give you an example, if you want a career in marketing, if you ask yourself, I wish I would have asked myself earlier what kind of lifestyle I wanted to have. If I would have thought, I really like when I'm creative. I really like when I'm on camera, when I'm creating content. I really like giving advice. I maybe would have pivoted and chosen a different career path that would have been more in line with what I love to do now. Maybe even if I would have asked myself those questions back then, maybe I wouldn't still have gotten closer to where I want to be right now. Maybe that would have been different. But I think not asking those questions isn't helping, right? It's not helping to further your goals and aspirations. So I would ask yourself, what do I want to achieve in the short term? And what do I want to achieve in the long term? So if you don't know the answer to those questions, you can maybe do a little bit more self-exploration and figure out, okay, well, how can I get more clarity around this question? What can I do? What can I explore? What can I discover to get me closer to the answer? It just brings in that piece of intentionality back into your life and your goals. Second question I want you to ask yourself, What kind of lifestyle do I envision myself in the future? Lifestyle is so important. It's so important because your lifestyle is what you're going to be doing day to day. I know for me, I took jobs in sales because in the short term, I wanted to make money. I wanted to get out of my debt. I wanted to pay off my loans. I wanted to become independent. But once I reached those short term goals, pay off my debt, pay off my student loans, get a savings account, I was kind of back in a place where I had to ask myself, oof, wait a second. This job that I have right now, what I'm doing, I can't sustain this. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. What I'm doing is actually quite exhausting to me. It's very exhausting and it's actually affecting other aspects of my life. And now I was left to think of, oh crap. Now I've fulfilled a short term goal, but this long term goal seems so far away now and it's in such a different direction. I'm going to have to almost take a step back to pivot and go another route. And so I think sometimes asking ourselves these questions like, oh, okay, well, this is a short term step. Do I want to take this short term step or do I want to maybe go in another direction that's going to get me towards that longer, more important goal? And I think just people in general, it can feel very overwhelming to think that far in the future. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to think about that long-term goal, that long-term lifestyle, because ultimately, why wouldn't you want to be taking actions that are going to coincide with where you want to be in the long run? Because if you're not, then that long run lifestyle where you want to actually be for the majority of the rest of your life is going to look very different if you're not thinking about those things ahead of time. So ask yourself that question, what lifestyle do I want? Is it the current lifestyle I have, or does that look different? And what can I do to get closer to that lifestyle that I'm looking for? Third and last question, what impact do I want to make on the community and the world? And I know this is for sure a question that a lot of you have not even thought about. But I'm going to tell you this. I do truly believe that when we have goals or aspirations that are out bigger than us, it just makes it that much more meaningful. And I use Elon Musk as an example. I'm sure there's a part of him that wants to accomplish all these crazy goals for himself. But I'm sure there's another part of him that truly wants to make and improve humanity. He's putting all this money and efforts towards SpaceX and trying to find life on other planets because he wants to try and save the human race. And I know that not everyone is going to try and save the human race. I'm not saying that that should be your goal, but I am saying to look a little deeper than just yourself. See how what you want to do in life affects other people. I think for me within this podcast, for sure, there's an aspect of creating this podcast that satisfies my self-interest because I want to be known. I want to be recognized. I want to make an impact and I want my podcast to make waves and to be recognized. But also there's that element of I know how badly I needed the podcast that I listened to and how much it positively impacted my life and my mindset that I want to be that coach and that person to lean on that those creators were for me. And I know that yes, there's self-interest within that, but there's also a very deep and rooted selfless interest where I want to make this a positive impact on someone's life. I want to change someone's life. And I know that I can have that effect and influence by the content that I create. And I know that I'm putting out positivity and positive messages into the world. And that's how I want to make an impact to the community and to the world. So I think that's a huge question you should be asking yourself. How do I want to impact the world, my community? And I think if you can marry that with your passion, that is the ultimate marriage is that world impact, that community impact, but then also your own passion and your own hobbies and your own love combined with that. I think that's when you kind of reach your next level of potential. And so I think asking yourself what that could look like for you is going to bring in a lot of insights and information about who you are as a person. That's it for today's episode. I will see you guys next time. And as always, if you do anything, do it with love, passion, and conviction. Bye.